So the first thing is like, what are the main sources of finding the new developers for you?
For us, we don't have dedicated recruiting staff. We tend to use external recruiters to do it. At least for us, we found that the time savings is,
Mhm.
it's paid off in what we pay them.
Have you seen the 25, Zach? Is 20 still sort of the center that you pay? We've seen that it's starting to creep up to like 25, 30. We've seen 30 too.
We typically try and have longer standing relationships with some of the firms we work with. Uh, Usually they'll try and start it with 25, and we can typically negotiate down to anywhere between 20 and 25.
Luckily, I am spoiled by having a very strong recruiting team. In some cases, 1,000 plus internally, just recruiters helping us like recruit. But the recruiting itself, I believe that it depends on the spectrum of like what level you're trying to hire for. So like and depending on that, the strategy changes. Right? I mean, if you're hiring for someone pretty new, then university recruiter or internship or something, that's like the path that we try to strive for. Whereas like if you're trying to hire for someone really senior, then in that case, like the personal relationship is the only thing that I have seen works the best. And then in between that, like for other recruiting, like for different level, there are different mediums, like either LinkedIn or like working with the recruiter, or something like that, which I have seen works really well. But the best recruiting I have seen, like which has highest ROI, is the one that comes with referral. So like I try to spend a lot of time like figuring, because then you already have a personal connection. It's pretty easy to then that like convert that relationship into an actual hire. So like if I had to like spend time and prioritize, like then I try to prioritize more time on referral than like going after the recruiter or doing the LinkedIn and or sourcing or anything else. What is interesting is in majority of those cases is actually not an interview. Like when you're hiring for really senior engineers, it's just relationship building, and the conversion happens naturally, like without any like formal interview process. It's just like talking, having coffee with them, having dinner with them, talking about the problem that you're solving, and not talking about please join me. It's just like talking about it, and then naturally then they will be interested in solving the similar problem.
Next thing is like how much time it takes to find the right developer for like junior, middle, and senior.
I feel the time is directly proportional to the seniority. So, like, I don't know whether like it is an increment of twice or like some percentage, but like as you go higher in seniority number, the amount of time it takes is also higher.
That sounds about right for us as well. We don't hire junior positions. The company I'm with right now, it's on the smaller side, so we only hire senior and above. And mid-level takes generally for us 3 months, and senior, we've had we have had like tech lead positions that are open like close to a year now. I think I sort of share that sentiment with Yugesh, that just the more senior that you are, it's more about a relationship for them to want to come to join to solve the problem with you. They're also taking on a lot of risks, especially now we're a smaller company.
I think it's also about like lowering you have to gradually lower your expectations for what will excite you. If you like right now, we're trying to hire for, a senior backend engineer, and we have Kotlin on our backend. Like nobody writes Kotlin really. I mean, it's not it's not nobody, but I could hire a Java engineer. I could throw a rock out the window and hit 5 Java engineers, right? So maybe just settle on Java, and then I can be excited again. So I think there's a little bit of that too. At some point, if I have a job, I'm trying to hire, I've only been here 2 months, but if this goes on for another month, I'll have to think about like, all right, what do I jettison from these requirements just to, because we have to move fast, we're a startup. So that's top of mind for me.
That's an interesting subject. Like, what are the qualities that you're willing to trade versus qualities that you're not willing to trade?
For me, first and foremost, it's about problem solving and curiosity are the two qualities on any level that I can't compromise on.
In terms of like compromise, like the way I sometimes see is like in terms of three C's. So like for me, it's like competency, communication, and compassion. These things are important, and there are like that's the reason why you have different kind of interviews, like coding interview to assess competency, behavioral interview to assess communication, and compassion. And sometimes you have like written module and everything to design interviews and all, like to assess competency and communication like combined. So like having a right, whatever your philosophy is or whatever like your thing is, like having a right module in place to assess them and having right questions in those module to assess them is also like extremely important.
For the next question is like, how many applicants for one job post is enough? Like for which you know that your like funnel is enough. So you're like posted for like Java developer, like in something. How many applications you are looking for at least to like saying that I can find the better quality? Like, or do you have anything like this?
I don't know if I say there's some. I don't know. I have an arbitrary number that I'm like, okay, we've interviewed 100 people. Surely one of them must be good enough. I mean, at some point, I guess that's something I should think about, because that probably is true. After some number of candidates, I should have picked someone. I don't know what that number is. I've yet to be wowed enough where I was like, oh, it takes 101 interviews to find the one. I don't know. There's so much spam too that number of applicants, it's almost become a meaningless number to me.
Yeah. Like improving the quality, like for whatever mean, like having a best recruiter, like to improve the quality or whatever, is extremely important. I will never compromise the quantity one. So like after 100, like I do have to select anyone. Like I might never do it, because if you end up selecting something wrong, your team is gonna end up suffering because of that.
How do you interact with the tech recruiters and the company? So you let you like touch this a little bit. Like, are you providing, I don't know, like any sorts of like requirements for who you expect, like experience with what technology, like how they filter them, or like do you have any process for that, like to identify, to like make the initial filter by the tech recruiter, so you're finally interviewing like at least candidates who understand something about what you are building?
We have an internal recruiter that are mostly tech savvy. She's been just in the industry long enough to know a little bit of like scoping question. The external recruiters are, my experience are sort of like the Mike and Zach has touched upon, is if you know them, you just trust the candidate that they have. So it's less about like a conversation of how they, like what kind of interview process that they would have. It's just because the pool of talent that they have connected over time are good.
Be very, very direct with recruiters, more so than most people. Maybe that's because they keep calling my personal number, but also because, you know, when I write a job posting, I try to make it somewhat more lenient in what the requirements are, because I think in doing so, there are some groups of people who won't apply to something unless they match 100% of the requirements, right? And so I don't want to. That is in general, those sorts of people are the kind of people that aren't enough represented enough in our sorts of organizations, and so I don't want to do that. So I'm more lenient on the requirements on the job postings, but then I'm very strict with the recruiter. It's almost like I present to them a challenge. Can you get me this absurd amount of requirements? And if they can do it, then that's amazing. And if they can't, they won't talk to me anymore. So it's a win-win either way, from my perspective.
Okay, guys, we can go for the next thing is like, so what are the main factors that attract tech talent according to your recent experience? And does it change when you are like for different generations, like boomers, millennials, Gen Zers? Are you selling different things to them, or like it's all the same? What are you telling them why they need to join your team?
But like, giving different message to different people based on their gender or based on their like these thing, I feel is wrong. Like, I mean, this is typical definition of biasing, right? So like I would try to like avoid that part. But like first of all, I think the most important thing is just assessing the motivation of that person, and that's where like the first 10 or 15 minute of conversation is extremely important. I mean, after like that person is selected, by the way. like like went through all the interviews and everything, is like just understanding them, listening to them, and trying to understand their motivation, and then like changing your message according to that motivation, because you have limited time, half an hour. You can just say so many things. Like, what are those things you're gonna say about? So like that depend on the motivation of that person. And in my opinion, like there are three things which I have seen is like is falls into like these categories, and I think those things are like people, projects, and what's in for me. Like someone told me this framework, and when I started like listening to more and more people, I saw that everyone falls into that category. These are the three things they care about. Like people, in terms of relatability, like how relatable they feel like with the people they're already as a part of a team. A project, like does it align with like their aspirations or their like motivations or whatever they're looking for. And what's in for me, like in a sense that what's in for them, like as an engineer or as a person that they're actually joining this org. Is it like money, like is it like position, or is it like more learning? Mostly it's not money and position, like even though people say that it's like later, which is around like learning and them like growing and everything. So like having the conversation like around these three parameter, like I have seen works. It doesn't work all the time, because otherwise like I'll be able to hire everyone that I'm talking to, but is kind of I have seen it a little bit more effective.
I've interviewed and hired 50-year-old women and 20-year-old dudes, and there's a commonality there that I do look for, and maybe it does create a monoculture in a way, but I don't think so. It's authenticity of being, I think, just straightforward about who they are. And if they're not the same type of person that I am or that the rest of my team is, that's okay, as long as they are humble and authentic, I guess, in the way that they are, and as long as, of course, they give a damn. For me, that's rule one: is you have to give a damn about your work in a way we're craftspeople, right? And you should take pride in what you do at the end of the day. And if you have that, and you're authentic and you're curious, then no matter what your walk of life, and I want to hire people from different walks of life with different life experiences, because I think that is where you really get a better product and a better org, is when people have different brains. Those are the things I look for. And I think no matter what the brain or the vessel of the brain, I think that's the thing that's important to me. Those things: authenticity and eagerness and curiosity.